Welcome to this episode with Stacey Embers, where we are going to dive into her healing journey and hear all about the moments that were most impactful as she began to find clarity, wake up to her life, and choose to live consciously. Hi, Stacey.
Hello.
How are you, sister?
I'm so good today. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me. It's like I'm excited and nervous when we're talking about our stories. It is like, okay, I can do this.
Yes, you are my very first episode of this podcast. And before we sat down this morning, I was doing some envisioning and intention setting around the podcast. And at the end of the day, I want these conversations to be real and vulnerable and to help people feel like they're not alone. Because I know that there's so much shame and isolation around just healing journeys in general and not feeling like you're far enough along or being embarrassed by the same relationships that you keep getting into, whatever your situation is. And I just really want to have conversations that people resonate with, that are real. So I know that takes incredible vulnerability from the guest. So I want to thank you for being willing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I am going to do the best that I possibly can
And that will be
to
perfect.
serve up. I had a great recovery meeting this morning, and it was on being of service to other people. So I suppose that was exactly what I needed to hear.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Well, let's start by giving everybody just a general idea of who you are and what you do. You want to start with where
Okay.
you are now?
I am on a seek and find mission every single day with myself and my higher self and my authenticity. I've been on this journey for a long time, and it just so happens to just ebb and flow, sometimes so deeply and with huge peaks and valleys, and other times it's not as much. But I have always been a seeker and a finder. I have always, I was given a really strong willingness for whatever reason to want to find solutions.
Mm.
And I'm also really in love with storytelling. So this is a passion of mine too, because um, we just don't want to feel like we're alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that shame will just make us crazy. And it paralyzes me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to feel paralyzed or isolated, So um I I had a nonprofit for years, and we told stories and to validate and love and create hope for women. And then now I have started my own business, and I have courses in self-abandonment, and I have a podcast as well. And it's just an honor to be a fellow traveler with you. It's so fun to be walking with people like you, because we are in a new era.
Yes.
We are so called today to be in our most authentic, highest self. And that calling is so clear and loud to me. And the more people that kind of get on this movement, the higher and brighter our universe will be.
Yes, we get to wake up. We get to no longer just walk about asleep in our life and go about in the hopeless patterning and ways that we have been our whole life. We're really invited to take back the control of that. And I agree, when you find other people that are also seekers and also committed to self-growth and also into just self-development and bettering yourself and evolving, it's like, oh, I found my people.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think when finding those people, it can, like telling these stories are so important, because even when I find those people, I immediately want to situate myself. Like, okay, so you're better than me, or you're higher than me, or more
Mm,
advanced than I am, or you know more. So I'm going to set myself here, but I know that person is kind of, I situate them here, and if we just kind of break that and say that we're all on a journey of motion forward, and because it can feel for me like other people are better or not as good as I am in this journey.
yeah.
And then I can be like, oh, I'm not as evolved or spiritual or whatever, and
Yeah.
um then I have to stay right sized. But these stories keep us right sized, to keep us a people amongst people.
Yes. I know in similar comparison trap that we can get in, when I see somebody who I automatically put on the pedestal or put
Mhm.
above, and then I have a conversation with them and they talk to me about their imposter syndrome or their fear, or I'm like, oh, are we?
Oh,
Oh, we're the same.
yeah,
Okay.
we're the same.
But
There I go again.
these stories that we create in our head, I think another powerful uh, effect that sharing stories out loud has is it really checks the story in your mind, because we'll create a story if we don't have one.
Oh,
And
the stories I create are amazing. Oh my
about
God.
ourselves, about other people. Oh my God.
They are magical
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like really detailed.
yeah. And really self-defeating
Oh
most of the
yeah.
time.
I am just either the most
Yeah.
amazing creature on the planet, or I am the most dog poop thing that has ever been. I cannot figure out
Yeah.
sometimes how to just be in the middle. And
I
then when
know.
I'm there, I'm like, oh, that's the spot.
Oh, this journey.
So stupid.
And I want to point out too how skilled you are at storytelling, because the first time I saw one of your reels where you were just talking about like, well, the most recent one that I'm remembering at this time was going camping, and you
Oh,
start the reel by saying when Jared wants to go camping, and you're just telling a story, but you're getting the message across
thank you.
in that, and it's so captivating. And I find myself every time I see a reel, I'm like, what's the story? Like, it's
Thank
just like
you.
laser beam sucks you in. So that is definitely a gift that you were given
Thank
in this
you.
in this life's journey.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So you're going to have to guide me,
Yeah.
because I am typically the one that is like in the captain seat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to give myself to you and, be of service and just allow you to kind of lead me, if that's
Yes.
okay.
Of course. Of course. I
Because if I
want.
stay in that mindset, then I'll not be, you know
Yep.
what I mean? Like trying to think ahead, or
Yeah. Just
I'm
be
just gonna be,
present.
yes.
I've got this container, this podcast episode container for you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I want to know, we're going to talk about your story, and your life story is a long one. I mean, not long in that you're
I'm
old, but
41, so
I know from our past conversations it's like you've lived many lives. And I just want to start with sort of like high level overview of maybe some impactful just transition points in your journey from wherever you want it to start until now.
I have a memory coming to me now of my dad, and he would joke as I was growing up that I was like, he would kind of do this and close his eyes, and he'd be like, "This is Stacey, just through life," you know? And I'm
Like in
like,
a whirlwind type
just like in a
energy.
fog,
Okay. Yeah.
like so, like just in a fog, and I think about that memory a lot. That is such a really clear representation of how I lived my life before I really became intentional and became awake. I
Mhm.
was living in a fog, and
Mhm.
how clear it was to the people that were closest to me and understood me the most, and I know I was a kid, and But that's my essence. That was my essence, as that person. And that carried me until an adult. I got sober at 26 years old. And I would love to say that even 5 years sober, I was living an intentional life, and I didn't have those words.
Yeah.
I didn't have the understanding at the time of a knowing place,
Mhm.
of intentionality, of being awake. And what an interesting, I that can bring me some very interesting feelings of, man, I should have been
Mhm.
different then, but it wasn't my time yet to become awake.
Yeah.
So even living a spiritually fit life, that was very different than being awake.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
I had a being inside of me that I allowed inside of me to allow me to lead,
Mhm.
but I still was not intentional. And um consciousness, and really, so my focus today is discernment
Yeah.
and being really intentional.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And that came because, sorry.
No, keep going.
Okay. So that came because of a series of decisions that I made.
Mhm.
And I got really sick, and I found new addictions, sex and love addictions, and codependency. And I was sober
Yeah.
from drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the layers of addiction. I didn't understand the layers of how sick you can be when you're going to recovery meetings
Yes.
and praying ish.
Yeah.
Um, but got really sick, and
Yeah.
um, there was a moment where there was a moment where I was taking action with my feet and my body and my mouth. And everything inside of my body was screaming at me to stop.
Mm. Yeah.
And it wasn't the first time that had happened. That had happened for many, many years as I'm, making these decisions. But at this point, I was like seeing someone, and my divorce or my marriage had ended. And I remember this the first true, like, something was different about this one, because I remember years before that knowing this is not too smart, but there was something about it that, like, I couldn't hear it. It was like, oh, okay. But at this, years later, there was something about this calling that it was so loud inside of me. It was like, why are you here?
Mm.
You don't want to be here.
Yeah.
Your feet and you keep driving over to his house.
Yeah.
You keep saying the words, I love you. I didn't even like this person.
Yeah.
And I would lay awake in his bed thinking, why am I here? This is everything about this is wrong. My gut would just yell and scream. And that was the first time that I truly understood self-abandonment.
Mm.
And
It's
it was really tough to swallow, I suppose.
those moments when you finally see something you can't unsee and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
I want to touch on something really important about sobriety. I work with a lot of women who are in recovery. And there's two words that are often used to describe somebody who's no longer intaking substances or participating in behaviors that are addictive.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is I'm sober,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them is I'm in recovery.
Interesting.
So, what I've learned about being in relationship with addicts is when you say you're sober, you might not be ingesting your drug of choice, but that addictive sickness translated to another form of another place in your life. So
Mm-hmm.
you're a workaholic, you're binge eating,
Mm-hmm.
your sex and love addiction, right? It just looks different than drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And because you go to a meeting once a week and you've sat in the circle and you were there, your body was there. I'm going to throw out a term. I don't know if this is even a term, but it's like it's like recovery bypassing. You know,
Oh yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, I no longer drink or use drugs and I go to a meeting once a week, so I'm healed.
Right.
And it's like, yes, and the
Well,
deeper
meetings are not recovery.
right. Right. And what I've learned from people who use the term recovery, it's like they're not only not ingesting or not partaking in the addictive thing, they're going to meetings for the community and for the accountability, but they're also in therapy. They're also in coaching. They're also have a spiritual practice at home, and
Mm-hmm.
they're doing the deeper work to uncover the what's underneath the addiction because there's
Absolutely. And for me, a huge part of that are the 12 steps.
yes.
And I need to. I thought, there was a period of time where I just put my butt into a seat at a meeting,
Yeah.
and thank God, thank God that kept me sober. Have always gone to recovery meetings. Always. I don't thank the creator of creators because I always just went.
Yeah.
I've always gone.
Yeah.
But there were years where I
Mhm.
didn't do any recovery
Mhm. And
work.
and that's understandable, right? Because when you're fresh into recovery from a behavior or a thing, it's like you just removed your entire coping mechanism
Mm-hmm.
and you are almost like a baby walking around trying to figure out what the fuck this life is and why you're feeling so much.
Yeah.
And you can't dive into the deeper trauma work, the deeper work when you're in that really vulnerable state. Like you have to ground and resource. And in 12-step meetings, any kind of spiritual recovery community, whether it's 12-step based or not, gives you that safe place to go when you feel really scared and alone.
Oh
And
yeah. It's it's amazing. I mean, I worked the 12 steps like a champ. I mean, it was like I was like obsessed with the 12 steps.
yeah,
And then it was like I was killing it spiritually, And then I got sick and I started making choices that didn't align with myself. And then I stopped doing the work because there's no way that I could do both.
yes. And what was sort of the pivot from the trajectory of feeling really good in the 12 steps and having some understanding and having a higher power than yourself to the sickness as you call what brought on
Self
that next
abandonment.
mm-hmm.
There's a moment I can remember like it was yesterday. My gut said, I am getting ready to do something that I believe will affect my recovery. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how, but I don't think this is good for me. And I stepped forward
Yeah.
and I did it anyway.
Yeah.
And for the next 3 or 4 years, I self abandoned every single day.
Mm-hmm.
My insides and my outsides did not match. My words and my body did not match my insides. And it's interesting because I've done years of healing around this. And most of the time it feels so good. There's no shame. There is just a lot of gosh, she's just sitting at the table,
Mhm.
right? And she has a voice.
Yeah.
And sometimes um she has a massive tantrum, or she doesn't feel a lot of shame today, but the other day there was an occurrence that happened that reminded me of the behavior that I um like all of the sleeping around and all of the really poor choices and all the self-abandonment. And I got really sad and I checked in with myself, and there was not a lot of shame, but my soul was sad because it was like I really, really, really hurt myself.
Yeah.
I really hurt myself. I really hurt my soul.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I
It's,
healed. And there's a lot of love and grace. But just looking back on it can feel really sad.
yeah.
You know, I put myself in really dangerous situations, dangerous physically, dangerous spiritually, um, very dangerous.
Yeah. It was like your intuition was trying to speak to you and you kept shushing her,
Oh,
shushing her.
yes. Oh
And
my
that's,
gosh, yes. And that is why today I'm obsessed. I mean, it is like an absolute daily work about being discerning and intentional.
yeah.
The discernment part is like, and I know we'll go through the healing part, but discernment today is like choosing, looking, seeking, finding, gathering information and seeing what heals. And then the intentionality part is when I step forward, when that aligns with me, then I step forward. That's my intentionality, you
Yeah.
know, because, and it's really interesting because when something doesn't align, I get really triggered.
Hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense to you, but like
Yeah.
if I just smell or sniff or
Yeah.
feel like a twinge of inauthenticity or something doesn't align, like my physical body will react.
Hmm.
You know, it's like this doesn't align. This doesn't align.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I mean, it is so clear
Yeah.
because I have connected so deeply with myself. And I'll get there to how I got to that place, but it is it is I am one with, well, when I decide to connect, because
Yes.
I'm like, I'm gonna go. I don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
But when I come in and connect with myself and something doesn't align, it's like alarms start going off,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
Thank God. Thank
Yeah.
God.
Well, you had tremendous trauma around being misaligned.
Yes.
And your body, your intuition, your little girl remember that. And so when your present adult self like has that come into awareness of like this is a potential same thing, everybody's like, Stacey, pay the fuck attention. Like we're
Right.
not
We're
doing
getting
that
the
again.
pants out and we're like,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting. Um, so I learned, one of my mentors taught me all of the versions of myself at the table. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know this or what this is.
Yes. I love this.
I'm a good, I love it so much. So I go in and the table is sometimes round and sometimes it's oval, but they're all the Stacys at the table.
Mhm.
Okay. And there are times where they're standing on the chair and they're yelling at me, or I'll go in and my little girl is like, she's not even at the table. She's in the corner and she's like in the fetal position
Mhm.
and I have to go soothe her. Um, I get a lot of information from that place. You know, I call it my knowing place, and I go in there and I see who's mad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's interesting about that is there was parts of my healing that I would go in and I was trying to purposefully remove the Stacey that was in those that really sick part.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to cast her away and not have her be a part of me because it felt really
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that got me very spiritually misaligned because I was trying to cast her away. I was like, I don't want you a part of me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to deal with you. I didn't want to give her a voice.
Yeah.
And so, not that long ago, I sat down and I wrote some contracts. I wrote some new agreements with her. And I asked her to be my guide
Mm-hmm.
and to be a very present part of my alignment
Yeah.
because she has a lot to say.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I go in there, I'm like, do you have anything to say? And she said, I just want to be here.
Yeah.
And then other times I'll go in and she's got something to say. But when I try to cast out those parts of me, um, I feel really unwell, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. And this idea of becoming familiar with your parts and with your intuition, I want to talk about how that's a process and how you went from feeling really sick and disconnected and unaligned, because so many of the women that I work with have some shame around not knowing what feels good and not knowing what it is to feel aligned. What do they value? What do they need? What do they want? They don't know those things. So you don't just wake up one day and you're like, oh, my intuition's back online and we're
Yeah.
best friends and I'm listening. It's like building trust with your intuition takes time, especially when
Years.
you disconnected her completely.
It took years, and I'm not there because I just tried to cast away one of my favorite people. So, like,
Mm. Yeah.
it's still a process. But to get here, it started with me absolutely refusing to meditate.
Mm.
Absolutely not. And my friend, she is a beautiful healer and meditation coach. She was like, please just try. And I was like, no. And she was like, I will literally sponsor you into this course. I think it would be great for you. And I said, absolutely not. And I remember taking a walk. I told her I would show up. I didn't show up. I literally forgot. And I knew that if I'm forgetting this, there's a blockage there, or I'm just crazy because I forgot this interview yesterday. But I missed it twice. And I knew that if I'm going to miss this twice and intentionally really wanted to go, there's something I need to look at.
Yeah.
And so I called her and I said, I need to talk to you. And I said, I am terrified to go into myself. I don't know what I'm going to find.
Yeah.
I thought there was like, I imagined a monster under a bed.
Yeah.
There was going to be secrets in there and I was going to be terrified. And I'd never spent time with myself. I'm highly extroverted and I spent a lot of time with quantity amount of people and distracted.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought of sitting with myself and even going in and was terrifying to me.
Yeah.
And she soothed me. And the first few times I did it, I just sobbed.
Mm.
I sobbed because there I was.
So much
And it wasn't,
gratitude.
it's there, it was the most beautiful.
Mm.
It was the most beautiful experience of my life
Mm.
because there I was.
Yeah.
And I was so sure that it was going to be so scary. But that's where I'm meant to be. And I was like, oh my God, I'm home.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, there's my soul. Oh my God, there's my knowing place.
Mm.
And that's why I teach this stuff, because it was like groundbreaking for me.
Yeah.
And I had to practice going into that, create a knowing place, editing the knowing place, spending time in that place, getting comfortable in that place with my higher self, soul, whatever you want to call it, my being,
Mm-hmm.
the all in that is immeasurable light. And slowly but surely start asking that place questions, start doing inquiries, getting really comfortable, and start like getting curious. And the more time I spent in that place, the more aligned I got and the more I could trust myself and my intuition. But that took forever too,
Yeah.
because it was like I didn't trust myself.
Yeah.
Trusting myself felt freaking impossible.
Yeah.
And it took years to say the thing that is inside of me, that is my all knowing, the things that it is saying, listen to that. That is truth. But my logic brain would say that is dumb. And we're not going to do that.
Yeah. Yes.
That was, I think that was one of the hardest works that I've done. The hardest pieces of work that I've done is to, I mean, it's like you got to get down and dirty. I mean, you got to just like, I'm talking like anchor in and like freaking I worked my butt off because I
Yeah.
wanted to self abandon my knowest of knowing.
Yeah. Yes, because that's easier. It's
Yes.
that's the familiar place, even though it's painful and causes pain in your life. We default back into that because it's like I could do that on autopilot. That
Oh,
doesn't take effort in the same way it takes effort to walk into the unknown and have the courage to face what you see.
yes. And another really pivotal piece during this time was I got hypnotized. And it was right when I was learning meditation, like really, I'm talking like meditation, not like, and then like go out, like legitimately having it change my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason this was so pivotal to me was because I understood and I had experienced truly my subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And and I knew that I could myself go back there. It was like I was so grateful. It was one of the most beautiful experiences. I was forced to understand that there is a subconscious, and it was so clear that my truth was in there while I was in that space and I was in that brave brainwave pattern,
Mm-hmm.
that it was like it was easier for me to meditate because I was like, it is safe there.
Yeah.
I know that all my knowing is in there and I can get back there. So it was almost like when I would go into meditation, I was like, okay, I can go deep
Mm-hmm.
because I know where it is. I've been there
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. You made that your new familiar place.
Right. And
Yeah.
that was huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful that I did that because it was, for some reason, it kind of like set a kind of a bar. Like there's no place that is so deep that is scary.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
It does. And I think that exact fear that you speak of if I open this, I don't know what I'm going to find. And what if I let myself actually feel something and then I never stop feeling that? Like if what if I never come out of this grief or I never come out of this sadness? And we create the story that that place is dark and scary, that houses all of our deepest traumas, and if we go into there we're going to have to relive all of that,
Mhm.
which is not always the case. Sometimes when we open ourselves to see things, things will come to the surface that we need to feel and integrate and move through. Yes.
Mhm.
And those things don't appear until you've created the safety within your body and yourself to know that you can handle that thing. Because when you continuously show up for yourself and go inward, what you're signaling to your body is that you're safe. And just by taking a moment in your day or however long your meditation is to not be externally focused and not be in your fight or flight, not be in your to-do list, not be running around crazy feeding in your chaos, you're letting your nervous system like relax for 5 seconds or however long your meditation is, and you start to build that trust that you're safe enough to go within, because you physically can close your eyes, you physically are not hyper vigilant, right? You're allowing your body to have a break.
Absolutely. And speaking of breaks, when I was in my seek, like, I'm an alcoholic. Okay. So I don't know. I swing that pendulum, baby. Like, it is like unbelievable. So I was like working 2 12-step programs, getting hypnotized, going to therapy. I was like, I think I was seeing 2 therapists at the time or something crazy. And I was, and then I was in this meditation course. So I was like just bombing myself. Oh, I was reading codependency books too.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like nuts. Okay. Yeah. All at the same time. And I remember my mom being like, is that too much? Like, I don't know. And I was like, no, it's, and, but I had to do that. I mean, I was like spraying the wall to see what fit. And that's just what worked with me. And some of these, okay. So some of it worked and some of it, I was like, okay, this is a lot. But therapy, amazing. 12-step, I mean, all of it worked for itself. But I remember a little bit of a mishap. I was like just getting my feet wet and I was like, I totally got this. I heard of this inner child thing. This was like years ago. I never even like went there before. So I looked up this, somebody said, do some inner child work. And I was like, cool. So I look up a meditation and I'm like just getting started in this process of healing. And I do this inner child meditation all by myself. And I found myself in like a puddle of my own tears in the fetal position of myself on the floor.
Yeah.
And I texted my therapist and I was like, I need to see you ASAP. And she was like, okay, so we're not going to do that anymore without a container,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
coach, a therapist, or somebody to like, sometimes we need to have somebody help contain this for us.
Yeah.
But I like went rogue and was like trying to like do inner child work, but I hadn't even heard about this, And that was interesting because it was like, okay. And so she walked me through like, let's create a plan and a process for this and like a container and all some stuff like that. Because some stuff can, when you open it up, it can look a little bit scary if you don't have somebody to walk with you.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I was like, I just closed the container and I was like,
yeah, seek support. Seek support.
you know what I mean? I was like freaking out.
Yeah.
So there could be times like that, but it never felt like, it didn't feel like a monster, I suppose. It just felt like pain, that I was really, really willing to address, but I didn't know how to do it. And I certainly didn't want to do it by myself.
Well, I don't think a lot of us are taught how to feel emotions. And especially those of us who find ourselves addicted to something, because we're addicted to numb the emotions that we're having.
Our favorite.
So I'm not in recovery from drugs and alcohol, but I'm in recovery from an eating disorder. I work a child of alcohol or adult child of alcoholics program, codependency. Like I'm in recovery from
the best.
From the chaos is how I like to simplify it. And there was no like, this is how you feel things 101 when I was growing up. It was, and bless my parents because they were doing the best they could with what they had. And we were in so much chaos and there were other things that were taking priority in just the family unit. And so I learned that my emotions were better if I just like locked them up, kept them in, and was fine all the time. And that's the tagline of people in codependency, right? Like, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
You're just fine. There's, and you're not. You're not fine at all, but you can't access that. So I remember in my healing journey when like my therapist would invite me to feel, because I would be talking about something that should have been eliciting tears or something, and she's like, what do you feel? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do I feel? Like, because I was so good at staying in my brain and I was so good at analyzing and intaking information and like understanding, but things weren't changing very quickly for me because I wasn't actually integrating the feelings that were stuck. It's like I had this tightly packed foundation of feelings, and I was like, no, I'm good. I don't need to do that.
You have like a knife stuck in your side
Yeah.
and bleeding.
Yeah. Well, because I would rationalize, I'm like, oh, I understand that you need to feel your sadness in order for the sadness to move. Cool. And then I would like check that off as like, oh, I understand that now. Like completely missing a huge piece of what that is. And so it was a long journey for me to understand it's okay to cry. It's okay to have something, some emotion other than baseline numbness. And that also took the help of therapy and coaches and communities of women and circles. And I had to see other people do it. And their vulnerability was, I mean, it took a while before that was like a direct invitation, but it was in the back of my mind like, oh, other people are doing this. And if I'm in a safe place while I'm doing it, maybe one day that will feel okay for me to do.
Mm.
So part of the reason that I hold group coaching containers and the intention of this podcast even is so that you can see other people doing it. Because for me, that's what I needed. I learn by example. That helps my brain understand how to do it and that it's possible. And that journey of feeling feelings, I remember the first time that I, similar to your inner child story, the first time I allowed myself to cry, like, I'm sure I had cried, like, I don't know, surface cried about things. But in my 20s, when I was full in my eating disorder, like, I don't remember feeling a lot. It was, it was very, it was very blocked off from feelings. So when I started doing therapy and, started in this journey, and I found myself literally on my floor sobbing uncontrolled, like inconsolable, uncontrollably, which for someone who also is addicted to control, that was really like, what the hell is happening? That was such a groundbreaking moment for me where I was like, whoa, all of that was inside. Like that, how long has that been there?
Yeah. And it's one of my mentors calls that sacred pain.
Mm,
And I love that. And I learned that. And what a beautiful way to look at that experience.
hmm
That was sacred to me. And if I wouldn't have had that experience of completely breaking open, because we need to be open, we need ourselves open, right?
yeah,
Then we can receive light. Then where would I be? I mean, I'm glad that I was completely crumbled and
hmm
completely open. Um, there was nowhere to go but up.
right.
There, there was
That
no
is the
more
bright
down.
side.
Elevator had gone all the way down to the last
Yep.
last floor. I mean, it was
Yep.
but thank God.
hmm
Pain motivates me. Um, I don't know. I've yet to really think really hard. I suppose I could go ask myself. Um,
I love that. Hold on. I need to consult my parts really quick.
I know
Yes.
the answer's sure shit right not there at the
Yes.
top, but
hmm
I suppose I could go ask myself what it is that motivates me to do all of this work.
hmm
And I know without a shadow of a doubt that I am on I'm in this life today to do the work that I do. That is abundantly clear. And which is good because I'm going to go a different direction here. Um, along with that line, I enjoy it. I know I'm supposed to do it, but there are times, I don't know if you can relate to this, so I'd love to share and see if this hits with you, that like I can over process and over meditate and over because I am so compelled to continue to get more awake and more conscious, and sometimes it is a lot.
Yes.
It's like I'm burnt out on spirituality.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
it's like sometimes that balance is really tough for me.
Yeah. The intention for me, because I can fall into the same where it's like trying to do everything at one time, right? And a lot of it. And when I check in with myself, I'm like, is this because this feels helpful? Or is this because I'm trying to intake more so I don't have to integrate what I've found? And this, oh my God, this literally just happened to me last night with my therapist.
Okay, I can't
so,
wait to hear about this.
so first of all, those of us in these coaching positions and healing professions, whatever you want to call it, we are constantly uncovering, unraveling, and sitting
Yeah,
with our inner children.
constantly.
And we're not at a place that's like where that becomes less painful. We just are more familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was having this session with my therapist last night, and I was really just I couldn't understand why it feels like I have a lot stuffed away again. And I was like, I just got through an EFT tapping certification, and that certification program was more self work than I've done in years. Like, it was like a condensed version of learning the skill on yourself, using it on yourself, using it on each other. And I cried more in that 6 months than, in a while. And so I'm telling her this, and I'm like, no, I've been doing intense release, because we were talking about maybe I'm not releasing because I'm storing because of something. And I was like, I've cried a lot. I've been releasing a lot. And she was like, but when you had your sessions, you like had this topic come up where you were emoting. She's like, and then did you revisit that feeling? Like, did you check in and be sure that that feeling was actually clear, like moved? I don't want to say cleared because they come and go, but was it moved, or what, did it like pop its head up to show you that it was there, and then you felt a little bit and then you pushed it back down? And I was like, what?
What you
Shit. And again, I think it was because that 6 months, it was intense, and I was trying to learn, and I was trying to feel, and I was trying to there wasn't a lot of time to go back and revisit that thing that popped up. So I was bypassing a bit in convincing myself that I was doing all of this intense work for 6 months, when really those were just the trailheads that were popping up. And I was like, oh, yeah, later, later, later. And now I'm at the point where there's less of the learning and less of the intaking of information. And now what I learned last night was it's time that I have to start going back and feeling each one of those things and feeling it. And so after this therapy session last night, we got off of the Zoom, and I sat and I like tapped on myself, and I let myself cry around the fear that I was feeling. And this 4-year-old was just screaming, I'm so afraid, I'm so afraid, slow down, I'm so afraid, like please just stop. Like, and it was like, again, those that in soul, why am I not thinking of the word? Like, where you can't be comforted. It was just like I needed to like
inconsolable? Yes.
inconsolable, thank you. um and I let myself go there for like 20 minutes, and And it was like, your face hurt from crying. And it was just, you didn't even bother blowing your nose because it was just like pointless. And it was so incredible to me that I had been thinking that I was feeling things, and I was feeling just the surface layer. But there's depth. There's so much depth underneath.
I relate to that so much. And I'm like, okay, I feel like it's almost a gift and it feels like a curse sometimes because I want to go deeper and I want to go deeper, but it's hard and it's painful
Yeah.
and it's like freaking time consuming. And sometimes I just want to like just not,
Yeah.
and that's why I really have to incorporate a lot of play into my life,
Yeah.
like intentionally, because I will get so um I keep bringing the word obsessed because I am an addict and I love
Yeah.
to just swing the pendulum. It's like I just want to do the work and process and meditate and
Mm-hmm.
go deeper and journal and discover. And because it's not about seeking, it's also about finding, right? Seek and find, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I haven't played.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that is such a big component,
Yes.
dancing and just being completely um, creative and
Yes.
free. And um, I just have to force myself to do that.
Yeah.
Because the work, I mean, I feel like like I'm sprinting to the finish line a lot of the times with my spirituality. It's like, God, come on.
Well, you mentioned impatience earlier, which I also resonate with, where it's like, I'm going to do all of the work super fast. I'm going to learn it all. I'm going to fix it all. I'm going to find it. I'm going to heal it. I'm going to integrate it. And then I'll be comfortable. Because for me, I move really fast when I feel discomfort.
Oh, me too.
I'm like, okay, I'm feeling confused about something. Find the answer.
Me too. Oh my God. P.S. Do you ever get really pissed when other people don't do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like my partner, he'll feel discomfort and he's like, this is so discomfort. And I'm like, write about it. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I know the answer. Just go write about it. Do step work and talk to your people at the table. Do it.
People who can sit in discomfort are like superheroes to
I
me.
think they're psychopaths,
I'm
honestly.
like
I don't understand this at all.
there's a difference too between like allowing yourself to sit in discomfort to like find the answer and sitting in victim mindset. So let's just differentiate
Okay,
those things.
fine.
Where he's like, I'm really uncomfortable. I'm just going to stay here and cry about it, or like not cry literally because that would help, but
Right.
complain.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I
Mhm.
move so quickly.
Yeah.
Some people just process or sit in it
Mhm.
for even a day. What? And then they could feel better the next day without doing really any of the work that I've done because they've just kind of processed through it. And I'm like going, I literally do this.
Cross your
Why
arms,
aren't you journaling?
roll your eyes. Yeah. Yeah.
Why aren't you doing mini bilateral processing?
I have to I have to be really careful and catch myself on that too because my addiction is to chaos.
Mm-hmm,
When I start running fast, I'm creating more chaos.
mm-hmm.
So like there's a balance there for me of learning to sit in the discomfort and pulling in support and pulling in tools in a way that's sustainable, that I can integrate what's happening instead of the grasping for information and knowledge and fix it because it doesn't feel good to be in this messy place. Like it's a fucking
I
tightrope
just
game.
went through this and I did my last podcast was on this, like I needed an answer because I was really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I was triggered. I there's a lot of my story that I've not yet told to my audience. I'm
Mhm.
just getting started in my business and there's a lot of my story that I need to tell. And I know that I need to tell it. I just needed to kind of trust my audience too.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to like bust down the doors and be like, it's so inappropriate for me to do that. So it was feeling like time to tell this stuff, but I hadn't done it yet. So I was like, I wanted to like do it really fast and like just fix the problem and not sit in the discomfort of like knowing that this is what I need to do, but not having done it yet. Does this make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So I wanted to know what the next step was. And so I forced my being to give me the answer. I was trying to force it. So first I started with meditation. I got nothing. Then I started journaling. I got nothing. So I was like, I'm going to go on a walk. That usually totally works. I got it. So I went on a walk. I got nothing. So then I was like, my last ditch effort is always totally works. I went and did my bilateral movement at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing came. I would like, it was like, I was so angry. I would get these little epiphanies, but it was just like things I already knew. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, it was all up here and it wasn't like in my grounding space. So I finally got home and I was like, I have exhausted all of my spiritual practices. I don't know what else I can do. And the answer came to me. No guidance is guidance.
Mm.
Like, just do the thing that is right in front of you. And I just imagined all of my little spirits and all of my helpers, like weaving this like beautiful path, like
Yeah.
paving
Yeah.
it in front of me. And they're like, would you for just a minute and like, let me do what just do what's in front of you. Stop it. I mean, that's like what I imagined. And then and then it was like, when you get a clear yes, then intentionally move forward, you
Yes.
know?
I'm laughing because I often will partition my higher self, my guides, and I'm like, can I just see the roadmap? Like, can you just give me the big picture
Yeah.
and let me know that this thing's gonna work?
Yeah.
And I resonate with, this being a newer business, and there's a lot that is pushing my comfort zone in being an entrepreneur. And I'm like, but just like give me that assurance, just
Mhm.
like give me something. Just show me like just a glimpse to see that there is a bigger picture. Like, and I never get it.
The
You know.
path is lit up sometimes just at the front
Yeah.
because it is like the most knowing that you have. Like, I know that I'm supposed to do this,
Yeah.
but the rest of the path is like invisible.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's really scary.
Yeah.
And that's where all of these practices that we've talked about that sometimes can take years, but it's forever, right? But it's connecting with, for me, I call it my knowing place, and continuing to get like to practice that every single day, even if it's just for a moment, to go in there and connect.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that I do that, the more aligned I get and the more I have to practice. But, there are things I have to put into place that force me. I mean, I use cards sometimes. I use things that have to remind me to, if you knew you would be completely supported, what would you do?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what that knowing is. That's what your higher self is doing. They're completely cheering you on the entire time. They're like, yeah, go, go, go. You can do it. This is the answer. I just get up here. So it is continuing to have people and things in your life that return you back to that place.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really hard work. I would love to say it's really easy, but I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of courage that comes with continuing to walk forward.
Yeah.
And the person that's listening to this, somebody told me these things too. So I hope that this really is something that it's the next push that they get to
Yeah.
just, because it's a whisper sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like a little whisper and it can be so easy to hush.
Mm-hmm.
Do you relate to that?
Oh, totally. Especially when that whisper comes through that's like doesn't make sense. Like I'll use this podcast as a beautiful example of that. I love having conversations. When I tap into my values, quality time is almost I don't like to even rank them, but it's my highest, right? And I was like, I really want to have a podcast. And it felt like that full body yes, that follow your joy, right? It was the next step. And it took me months. I mean, I've been thinking about this since like last summer, I think. And that voice would come in immediately after I got the scary but expansive, it would come in and be like, you need to focus on bringing in income. Like a podcast is a long game. You don't have time for long game right now. You don't know how to do it. You're like, how are you going to build an audience? That's going to be so much work on top of trying to build an audience for your coaching, right? And like, just like slam it, slam it, slam it. And those arguments have some validity, which
Mhm.
is what kept me in that like, oh, this feels really good, but oh, this feels really, and enough enough months went by where I was like, this is still feeling like it's pulling me towards it. There's got to be a reason that I can't see, and constantly having to come back to reminding myself like you can't see the full picture. So when you're getting that next knowing, that's your sign. Like go that way. like you're saying, that's like the next step that lights up, and that's how we end up in the journey that we're supposed to be on. But the ego battle is real.
It's real. And it's good to have people around that can
Yeah.
help. Because,
Yeah.
people, good people. I mean, in my course, we do a lot of alignment checks and we do relationship, like an inventory of the 5 people that are most in your life. And we answer a lot of questions around them.
Mm-hmm.
And I did this years ago. And oh man, I had to totally restructure a relationship.
Yeah.
I either said I'm going to have to go, or we're going to have to restructure this relationship because it is not healthy for me. So having people in our life like that can encourage us, and
Mm-hmm.
that because that energy is so palatable with people that are like cheering you on
Yeah.
and checking you for good motive,
Yeah.
or they have good motive. I mean, it's it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And that can help you remember to wake up.
Exactly. Yes.
When you when you're asleep in the ego state of like, or whatever your pattern is that you've slipped back into, they're like, yo, Stacey, remember this? Like, and
Yeah.
it's almost like someone gently nudging you awake. And
Hmm.
to have those people in your life that understand your soul, like when you were talking about in your past having a lot of quantity, I relate to that also. I used to be the girl who, fit into every group. And then when I started doing my work, I'm like, why am I doing that? Like I don't like doing the things that those people do. I don't like surface conversations.
Mhm.
So like none of this aligns. And switching the mindset of like having a few close soul connections is so
Mhm.
much more fulfilling to me than knowing I have a lot of friends. I'm like,
Yes.
what good is that going to do if I don't feel connected to you?
It drains me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So with with all of the wisdom that comes from doing the work and putting in the years and putting in the tears, what what have you found is possible for you now that you live more in the awake state? Not that you never fall asleep, but that you awaken quicker each time. What's opened up? What's become possible in your life?
I think that the greatest joy is intentionality. I I'm not confused anymore. I don't end up places.
Mm-hmm.
I I'm really clear what's going on in my life around me because I've chosen it very carefully.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about the things that like I can control. I mean, I can't control some, people that exterior things necessarily, but I I'm really proud of that work, how discerning I am and how every step is so clear. I mean, it's like we looked at a house yesterday and it was like everything checked the boxes. Oh my God, it checked the boxes. I had a feeling it was like, this isn't right. This is just not right. And a former, layer of myself would have moved forward on that.
Mm-hmm.
And today I know what that feeling means.
Yeah.
And I don't have to wake up one day at that house and be like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And that is a gift because um, every, things are thoughtful and that means I'm completely aligned with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is not perfect and I can certainly, go off base, but I even do it so much as like when my partner, says to me, do you want to go eat sushi? Well, my answer today can be like, no, but I'll go ahead and eat that with you because I don't really mind, but I don't really want that.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Even that little tiny bit,
Mm-hmm.
it matters to me,
Yeah.
and the longer I do it, I'm just like, I am so full of authenticity and just exactly where I need to be. It feels I'm free.
Mm.
I have
Yeah.
freedom today. Um, and of course, like I said, this is not like I'm not like rainbows and lollipops, like this is the most perfect life ever because I fall off and
Yeah.
but in general, I mean, I'm free.
Yeah. That
So,
clarity is,
yeah.
oh, talk about nervous system regulation. Like when you're not constantly confused and anxious and like on edge all of the time, whether that's in your relationships or in your job or with your family, like, oh, the freedom that comes from just being able to like not engage in crazy shit.
Yes.
It's incredible.
I don't
Yes.
have to pretend. Like, even with work, I was at
Yeah.
a wonderful place with wonderful people. And I was like, I'm pretending.
Yeah.
I can no longer do this.
Yeah.
I will not spend because it depletes you when you pretend. You are then depleted. You get depleted, and I'm just no longer willing to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And um, yeah, I mean, all the work just landed me here. I mean, it is.
Mm-hmm.
I refuse to self-abandon. I refuse to do it. I refuse
Yeah. Yep.
because I mean, it's for me, it's life or death.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. I mean, I put myself in situations that could have killed me.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, so dangerous. That's where self-abandonment gets me.
Yeah. It's like you've finally embodied what it is to protect your parts,
Mm.
yourself. I when I was leaving my toxic relationship, that was really the catalyst for this work for me.
Mhm.
I explain it as going from like kindergarten to grad school in boundary setting, like in an instant, because the intensity and the fear of his behavior and the threatening things that were happening, it was like there's no longer an option to be wishy-washy on these boundaries or to feel bad for him. It was like I needed to protect my cub. Like that was the analogy that resonated for me. I was like, I felt like finally that lioness that was like, bitch, no, like I'm protecting her first. This behavior is unacceptable and dangerous, and this is what we need to do. And that connection that I created with her through that process was like she learned she could trust me for the first
Mhm.
time because I had self-abandoned in every relationship in some way or another, right? The people pleaser, the bend over backwards for everybody, be the
Mhm.
one that everyone likes. Like it was a lot of masks. So for me to choose her and to so fiercely be to have her like with me was such an empowering moment for me in my
When you're
inner.
saying that statement, which age are you thinking about right now?
Oh, four. Four is
4?
always four is the age that like appears
Really?
when I.
First? Kind of like,
Mhm. Mhm.
wow.
Mhm. Yeah,
Do you know what
and
she's
that was
wearing?
yeah. I'll show you a picture.
Let me see.
I have her framed on my desk, so I
Oh, I
remember.
love that. Oh, I love her. I love her. I love her.
I know. And
She
this,
loves you
and
so much.
I chose this picture because she also looks playful.
Mm-hmm.
Like she looks like she's like getting ready to like pounce or something.
Mm-hmm.
And playfulness and joy is something that I have to work really hard at. Like I was put in the over responsible role in my family, and like I know how to do responsible and on task and serious, you know. And so when I connect into her, there, like you said, there has to be some form of play, whatever that looks like in my adult life. But that's a harder place for me to go to, because my default is the serious, depth. But there has, like you said, there has to be the balance between going down and coming back up. Yeah,
God, I don't want to stay down there. I'll lose my mind.
I know.
I've done it.
I know. Yeah. Yes. And
Because
that,
what
I think that's
happens
an
with me,
important.
and then I know I could talk about this forever. So, but I'll just say
I
one
know.
more thing. When I
Yes.
get, when I stay in that place, oddly enough, I go into this place. I go into my brain. Like when I
Mm,
stay in that like hyper, like acute, like spiritual place, for some,
yeah. Yeah.
I end up, I end up staying there because I want an answer or I have some sort of a
Yeah.
motive or I'm trying to figure something out.
Yeah.
And I can get like grippy about it instead of staying in flow in that place. And then I go right to my
Hmm.
brain. And then
Yep.
I'm all messed up. And then I'm all like, I'm in backwards. I'm going backwards.
You're like, but I'm doing the thing that's
I'm
supposed to be
doing the
working.
thing.
And
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yes, I feel that. I feel that. Oh, well, I love the benefits that you have felt from doing the work. I love the clarity and the freedom and you getting to step into your life of alignment and passion and do what you're meant to do. It's like there were layers that were clouding this light of yours, and you're shining.
Thank you.
And I and that takes courage. It takes courage to do the work. It takes courage to wake up. All of it takes courage. So I want to thank you so much for
Mm.
sharing with us your journey and your wisdom, because you're full of it.
Thank you.
Full of
I
it.
have, it's like, did I black out? I don't even know if I made sense, but I hope
No,
that.
you did. You did. You did. And I would love, so I'm a big fan of Oracle cards, and I would love for you to close your eyes and tune in and help me pick a message for the audience today. So just getting centered and tuning into the deck, tuning into yourself, your knowing place. Whenever it feels good for me to stop shuffling, just let me know.
There.
Okay. Frog.
I
This is
don't
a
even,
new deck. It's a
I
new
don't,
deck, so I'm learning too, but I'm going
tell
to
me
read
about
it.
the frog. I know nothing about a frog.
I don't either. This
Oh
is
gosh.
a woman, her name is Mud Witch Industries, and she has
I
this
saw
touch
that
points book.
on your Instagram.
Yeah, it's really cool. The messages are so unique. I have various decks and I use them all and love them all, but this one's really cool. So
Okay.
I'll read you what Frog is.
Okay. I'm scared.
Frog visits you with a message to trust your intellect. He is an ancient knower and is deeply sensitive to his environment. What you are thinking, experiencing, and knowing is not to be minimized or ignored. Write it down, keep a journal, gather your data, use your mind, trust your thinking. Don't let other people tell you what you know. Your knowledge and contribution are what you needed now. Now is not the time to hold back your thoughts. The answers you possess could shift your ecosystem in positive and remarkable ways.
Hmm.
Hmm. Resonates?
Okay. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Don't let other people tell you what you know. That's the part that stood out to me.
Absolutely.
If
I
we
love
get,
that.
we can fall into the someone else will tell me what's true, or someone else will tell me what to do the podcast or not do the
Oh,
podcast.
yeah. Oh, that's my favorite. I have great
Yeah.
stories about that. I mean, I even asked my parents if they thought I should get divorced or not. Like that.
Yes.
Like I
And have you,
literally, whatever their answer was, I was going to do. Like that is
yeah.
unbelievable.
The, the part I love about doing that is like, I'll ask my partner, it could be something even like not that important, right? Like, should we have Mexican or Asian
Mexican
food
or
for dinner?
tacos. I love what you just almost
Yeah,
said.
Mexican or tacos.
You really want
And
that,
he'll
don't
be
you?
like, I'll be like, what should we do? You know, and he's like, oh, I think Asian. And I'm like, yeah, but tacos, like, you know, and I'll just start like, it's like I already know what I wanted.
Yeah.
And if they don't align and tell me what I want, then I start arguing the point. And he's like, why didn't you just make the tacos? I know.
I
I
already
wanted your
knew the
opinion.
answer, Mr. Frog.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
um, any last words of wisdom that you want to leave the audience with?
Oh gosh. That seems like a very hard thing to do. Um,
What does little Stacey want to say?
mm, she wants to play with that girl in the picture.
I know.
She really does. Honestly, my little girl is asking to play. She really needs to play.
Hmm.
And so I just see like polka dots. Did she have a polka dot dress on? Your person? Your girl?
So it's very 80s or 90s. I don't even know what this is, but it's like layers of
Okay.
polka dots and
Okay.
stripes with
Yeah,
a
I
big
just
ass
like want to
bow.
wear polka dots and have fun today. I think that maybe
Yes.
there's the message there of I guess I can take myself really seriously sometimes with this work. And I
Hmm.
think it's supposed to be more joyful and playful than sometimes I give it credit for.
Yeah. We need both.
So
We need both.
I think that's the
The depth
message
and the length.
because it can feel heavy and I think
Hmm.
if I look at it in a lens of joyful and playful, I think that that is
Hmm.
such a beautiful place to be.
Okay, so the image of a mermaid just popped into my mind of like I'm also was like a huge Little Mermaid fan when I was younger and still can recite the entire movie. But anyway, that image of like the mermaid diving down and then coming back up and like laying on the rock and like just being like playful in the waves and sunbathing. It's like we can do both of those things. And we
Yes.
need both of those things. Yeah. I like that. Some
Mhm.
playfulness
Some
this afternoon
playfulness.
and this weekend.
You
Yeah.
are a gifted, bright human. And it is an
Mm-hmm.
absolute honor to be a fellow traveler with you. I mean, what an honor. Ah,
Mm, thank you.
really, I
I'll
mean it.
receive. I'll receive that.
Receive because, yeah, and my partner was listening to our podcast and he was like, oh man, she's really good. I love her voice. She said, and my first thought was, hey. And then my second thought was, yes, she is so wonderful. I don't have to be that like best all the
Yeah, I think the same of you, and I'm excited to see how we collaborate in the future or play with we'll do a little play date with our little girls or something because yes, you feel very
Thank you.
aligned. So I'm very grateful for you and for you being my first person on the podcast.
Thank you. We're just feeling our way around, aren't we?
We're just throwing it at the wall, see what happens. I love it. I love it. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Stacey.